My Sinister Hand here, back with another Fix-It video. A good friend of mine recently sent me this microcassette recorder. He's an actor and he's been using it for years to practice his lines and such, but it's recently stopped working. And while there's plenty of new modern versions of this type of thing out there that he could replace it with, he says for his needs, nothing works quite as well as this, and he's pretty attached to it. And he sent it to me to see if I could fix it, so let's walk around and find out. So we've got an Olympus Pearlcorder S711 microcassette recorder. And my friend was telling me it won't do anything. It won't play, it won't fast forward, it won't rewind. My suspicions are that it's just a belt problem, so we'll see if that is the case. Well, when I push play, it actually... I hear something trying to happen. Here's some static. Not sure if that comes through. Let's might be because we're at the end of the tape though. I don't know. Let's try the other side.
Today's the day, man.
Oh.
That bitch can't talk to you like that. It's time to show her who the fucking alpha dog is. I'm gonna introduce her to my big swinging dick.
Great bite, Jason. It's perfect. Perfect placement for that tape. All right, let's see. That other side worked.
Indeed, I told Captain Markinson that I wanted the boy transferred off the base immediately. Yes. Is there any other kind? Thursday.
Sounds like a few good men on the other side. Okay, so now it is working. But the fact that Jason said he tried a number of times and it just wasn't playing. It is now... It is moving, but that one time when I first put the tape in and push play, it was just kind of stalled out. So I do think it's probably a belt problem. Let's take this thing apart. It's definitely pretty old, and it's got some dust and crud in there that should be cleaned out. That'll probably help things move along as well. Something could just be gumming up the belts, or I mean gumming up the rollers probably, the pinch rollers, and maybe it's just not grabbing the tape. So, I don't know, which could eventually end up with it eating the tape if the transport was rolling, but the pinch rollers weren't grabbing the tape properly. So let's take this apart and see what's going on inside. All right, looks like we've got a Phillips screw. I'm not sure if that's anything. And we got... Looks like two Phillips inside the battery compartment. So let's grab some screwdrivers. That's a really long screw. Jesus. All right, those two are the exterior screws. Kind of looks like that's it. Now let's see what come off without taking the battery compartment. No, I think that's going to have to come out too. Alright, that just lifts right off. And it looks like this little pause button runs down here to this little mechanism here, and it's probably what moves this switch right here. So I need to make sure when I put this back together that's still in the same place and that switch is there and that all lines up properly. Now the next step set that aside. The next step is to see if this circuit board comes off. All right, one thing I see is this little red LED goes up into the chassis. So definitely need to get that clear before I pull it up. But I can't seem to get it out. What else is caught there? Oh, there we go. All right, got the LED free. But there's still something. Oh man, I think it's. They don't make this easy to get into, do they? I think the positive and negative wires here that run to the built-in mic, I think that's keeping it. I think that's keeping it from coming out. I could desolder. Probably should power up that soldering iron anyways. Let's power that up. I think I'm going to need to desolder these two wires. I'd hate to do that, but yeah, it's labeled mic, so that is for this built-in mic. I think that's what's keeping me from getting this open so that I can get in there and look at what's going on at the belts. Yeah, I think I'm going to need to do that. Okay, so let's heat up the iron. All right, soldering iron should be hot. Let's see if we can disconnect these two. Positives undone. And the negative. Okay. I've got the internal mic cables undone. Man, this thing's tiny. bit of tape to tape them back out of the way. All right. Oh, so many more cables. All right, I can see the belts. They seem pretty loose. All right, so this screw, need to remember that. That's on the inside. That goes into the transport mechanism where there's a spring. Okay, to get to the belts, damn, still, I think there's a brown wire, a black wire, a blue wire, and a white wire here that is keeping me from, those might be transport controls or something. And then you've got the speaker, this braided green wire. These two braided green wires run to this right here that are holding it down, as well as a brown and black here. Jeez. Those are the battery terminals. So I think to get to the belt easily, it looks like just one belt. I think I'm going to have to desolder everything, which is a real pain. Desoldering is not the pain, really. It's the resoldering after I put it back together, because it's so tiny and the wires are so small. That's going to be the pain. But I think that's what I'm going to have to do if I want to get in there to this belt. All right, let me get a piece of paper. I'm going to document where all these wires go. We will be back. All right, made a crude, quick diagram of the piece so that I knew what wires go to what pads. We've got the brown and black wires going here from the battery terminals. We got the braided green going to these two pads. That's the speaker. And then we got these 4 cables coming in that are white, blue, black, and tan. I've got those pads labeled. The built-in microphone that I've already disconnected, those 2 pads, those are labeled positive and negative and mic, so that's pretty clear that the red is positive and the black is negative on that. So I'm not worried about putting that on the diagram. The other one is, there is a red and black positive negative here. I'm not sure where that runs and if I need to detach that as well, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And I also took a couple pictures just to be safe. So let's start desoldering and see if we can get this thing apart. Now, this braided green wire, I need to label one of them so I know which one goes where. I mean, it's a speaker, so maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe polarity doesn't matter. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if polarity matters on speakers. This is something I should know. I don't know why I don't know that, but for some reason I don't think it matters, but I could be totally wrong. Again, disclaimer for these videos, I know absolutely nothing of what I'm doing here. I'm just fucking around and seeing what happens. Alright, I got one of the green free, and I should try to label that just so we do put it back on the same pad. Let's see. Take a Sharpie. No, not a silver Sharpie. I'll take a black Sharpie, and we will color that one. And we will notate that this one is got the black marking and the other one's just going to be the green one. Okay, that's how we'll differentiate those. Next cable to come off. Pull these out of the way. Alright, those are off. Now, pull that out of the way. There we go. Now, this little spring mechanism, not sure where that goes. So there's the belt. Doesn't seem too bad, actually. I mean, it's a little loose, I guess. It could be a little tighter. And there's definitely some gunk and dust and stuff down in here. But otherwise, looks like it's in good condition. Let's take the belt off and see if we've got any gunk going on. These belts, sometimes they'll deteriorate. No, I think it's in good shape, man. It doesn't appear to be... Let's see, where are my belts? All these replacement belts I have, they're all pretty thick. They're the This original belt is like really thin. So I'm afraid any of my replacement belts are not going to fit. That one kind of works, but I don't know. And the thing is, if it's a thicker belt, it may rub up against stuff it's not supposed to be rubbing up against. Like the tolerance between this fast forward rewind switch and the belt is just so close, man. Like, I just don't know if that's going to cause a problem. I mean, we could put it back together and see if it works with this belt. Probably what I should do is look into ordering a new belt specifically for this cassette player. But yeah, I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Let's put this new belt in and see if it just totally screws things up. All right, one thing to note when putting these back together, there's this little white tab that sticks up, and that little hole of that, I'm not sure what that mechanism is, maybe that's the pause button, needs to line up precisely and go right through there, thread right through there. Okay, so I got this back together, and then let's put it back in here. Actually, let's see if this screw actually will hold this together for me. There we go. All right. So let's, before we put it back in the case, let's get this soldered back together. All right, so let's look at our diagram. Top right is the blue one. Okay, those wires are in. Let's see. Double check the work. Blue, white, black, and tan. Okay. Now, let's get this back in the case. Make sure that red LED goes in. Feels like everything's seated in there properly. Okay. So all I got left is the brown and black down here. They're the battery connectors, battery terminals, and then the red and black, the positive negative for the internal mic. All right. Whew, that's some touchy work. Not the best with the soldering iron, unfortunately, but hopefully it's good enough. What I am going to look for is make sure I didn't bridge any of those solder pads together accidentally. This blue and white wire, those pads are so close together. But I think they're okay. Same with the speaker wires. I don't think there's any solder bridging there. Alright, let's try to put this thing back together and see what the hell happens. Alright, so I gotta remember to get that pause piece to line up just right. Which hopefully it just falls right into place, right? Normally I would probably not put it completely back together, but since it's not that big a deal to take it apart, it's only 4 screws, I'm just going to put it back together so it's nice and sturdy and make sure everything's connected well while we test it so it's not falling apart on us. Now, I don't know, I don't have high hopes for this belt because it was thicker than the original. I'm afraid that's going to cause problems. In previous times when I've messed with cassette players, when I've done that and put a thicker belt on it, it's never worked out too well. I tell you what, let's leave that last one out for a second. Let's get some batteries in here and test it out. All right. All right, the motor's still running. Fast forward works. Rewind works. Let's see what happens when we put a tape in.
Off the base until 0200. The 0200 was the first flight off. Are these really the questions I've been called here to answer? An infantry unit, son. Have you ever
served in a forward area? Have you ever put your life in another man's hands, asked him to put his life in yours? We follow orders, son.
We follow orders or people die.
Interesting. I'm not real familiar with microcassette players, but this has a speed. It's a 1.2 and 2.4. So 2.4.
Boy, I'd love to know what in the world qualifies you to pay.
Sounds like regular speed, and then 1.2 slows it down. So you've got that option. But then there's this other one, normal or F play. Mic sensitivity, VCVA. I have no idea what those are, but they mess with the speed too, apparently.
Certainly not in principle. I disagree only in as much as I disagree that a paraplegic is entitled to foxtrot. It'd be
Nice. It just isn't possible.
Speeds it up.
This court. I don't know what that means. I'm saying it isn't possible for you to hear the truth. Your Honor,
Is this dialogue relevant to anything in particular?
Let's try the other side of the tape.
Oh, Bradley, I was just going to call you in. I was wondering if you could update the expense reports for last month. Of course, absolutely. How's your daughter? Fine. We're all praying for her. Thanks. That fucking snake? Think she can use my own family to placate me? Fucking Barbara!
Fucking Barbara. Well, I mean, that belt seems to be working.
Hey, you guys, I'm gonna need your receipts for November. Fuck those receipts! Rome is burning, man!
All right, fast forwarding.
Here's the day, man. That bitch can't talk to you like that. It's time to show her who the fucking alpha dog is.
Pause works.
Huh?
Now, I know Jason's voice pretty well, so it sounds like it's playing at the correct speed. I do not have any real precise way of measuring if the belt is turning the motor, or I should say the motor is turning the belt, which in turn is turning the cassette at the right speed or not. With Walkmans and such, I have a regular cassette that is a test cassette, so when you play it back, it does a fixed tone, and by judging the frequency or measuring the frequency of that, you can judge whether the tape is playing back at the correct speed or the tape mechanism is playing the tape back at the correct speed, and you can adjust accordingly. Now, I don't have a microcassette that has that frequency on it. I don't even know if there are any exist out there. But being that this is not really used to play back music and it's more of a voice recorder, I think as long as it sounds like it's close enough. It's not like you're going to be listening to music on this and hearing like the piano warbling out of tune like Wow and Flutter or sound the wrong pitch. So I think this is going to be good enough. All right, so I've been putting this thing through its paces, been rewinding, fast forwarding, stopping randomly.
See, this is where your strategy begins to fall apart.
Press and play, just checking to see if I can make it lag. I've gone to both ends of the tape, flip the tape over, to put more stress on the cassette reels and or the motor wheels, and it seems to be working fine. So that tighter belt did seem to work, but I want to do one thing. I want to do a test of the record function. I'm pretty sure this probably works because Jason's problem was just the fact that it just wouldn't even turn on at all or move the tape. So I think the record function's still fine. He never said anything about that being bad beforehand. So, but I still want to test it, make sure I didn't screw something up when I took it apart. So let's do a little test here. I'm at the beginning of the tape and testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check. Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check. Okay, so record function seems to work, but now what I'm thinking is, I was listening to Jason's voice. It sounded okay to me, but listening to my own voice, I feel like that tighter belt is running it a little faster than it should, which makes it also a little higher in pitch. So I sound a little fast. I sound a little high pitched. And I don't think I really sound like that. So there is, usually on most cassette decks, and luckily we can access it from the outside, on the board there is a potentiometer for controlling the motor speed to adjust for differences like that when the belt's too tight or too loose and not playing back at the correct speed. You can adjust. So let's rewind that and get that playing, and we're going to tweak with the potentiometer here.
Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check.
Let's try that again.
Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check.
Maybe that's a little too slow now.
Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check.
Someone screwed up. No. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I've been tired lately.
Though the tape speed, so now I'm confused, because if I'm recording at a certain tape speed and playing back at the same speed, it should sound natural. It should only be when you're bringing a tape in from another deck, right? I don't know. Oh, it's making my brain hurt. Hang on a second. All right, let's try it again. Because I think now I'm a little too slow.
Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check.
That sounds pretty close.
Testing. This is testing the record function of the Olympus Pearlcorder S711. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check, check.
Someone screwed up. No.
Now I'm hearing a little weird like electrical interference. I don't know if it's just all my light setup and camera setup over here. That's what that caused that. So I think I need to do another test off camera and see how well, how clean the audio is, because it did not sound real clean, did it? All right, I'm gonna step off and do another recording and come back. All right, so I stepped away and did another recording to see if that electrical noise was there, and it doesn't appear to be. Let's take a listen.
All right, this is a test away from all the electrical gear. I'm walking around the garage here, and of course this part of the garage is not treated for sound, so it's not the best acoustically, but we'll see how well this sounds during playback, and we'll see if there's any kind of electrical noise that I heard before.
Dennis, you know, the engineer, my guy who was littering in the Admiral Tulip Garden.
So it appears the record function does work. It's definitely some noise floor there, but I mean that's just typical with the tape recorders and just magnetic tape. It's just the nature of the thing, especially something with this kind of age. But that electrical noise is gone. I think it was from just being around all my equipment here. And I think I've got the motor adjusted to compensate for the tighter belt that we put in, but hopefully that tighter belt will actually keep it from getting bogged down by the tape when it's to one extreme or the other end of the tape, and which I think may have been causing the intermittent ability to play or not play that my friend Jason was experiencing, and I also experienced a little bit. But I think also just taking it apart, cleaning it out has helped just function better. Yeah. So, pretty easy fix. I suspect it was probably the belts from what he was telling me. Wasn't super easy because I had to desolder all those wires, and it was, God, how many wires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was like 10 wires that I had to desolder so that I could take the thing apart and easily access the belt. Now, you may have been able to pry up the board and maneuvered your way in there with some tweezers or little screwdrivers and put a new belt in, but that would have been such a pain, such a freaking pain, man. Desoldering the wires was definitely the way to go. You could easily access the motor and the belt. You know, you just got to be careful with how small that is. The solder pads and those wires are so tiny, you don't want to damage them. So you just have to be careful. Go slow and be careful if you're doing a job like this. But I think it was successful. I mean, time will tell. I'm going to mail this back to my friend, and I'm sure he'll put it through the paces over the next few months. And he'll probably report back to me whether it's holding up or not. So I think it was pretty successful. So until next time, my sinister hand.